Hi everyone, TARDIS Guy 123 here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 6th Doctor story, Attack of the Cybermen. So this is an interesting story for many reasons, and quite a controversial one as well. It's the 6th Doctor's second ever story, and it's the first that's in the 45-minute format, kind of. You had Resurrection of the Daleks the year before, which was mainly that way in kind of like the 50-minute format, because I think there was the Olympics going on. There might not be the Olympics actually. There was something going on at the time that meant rather than airing it as two one-pot episodes on separate nights, they aired it as one 50-minute episode, well, two 50-minute episodes rather than four 25-minute episodes all on the one night. So, yeah, but anyway, yeah, I guess you could almost say that was a trial of this format, and it was carried forward here, only used this season, so you've only got Attack of the Cybermen, Vengeance on Varos, Mark Durrani, the Two Doctors, Time Lash, and Revelation of the Daleks done in this format. And and then you've also got the new series which goes forward with that, and it's an interesting format. I think it lowers the amount of cliffhangers you have, I guess, but other than that, there's no real change to it. It's not like the change between new and classic Who. It's still basically the same show in a similar format, just now the episodes have been lengthened, but the episode number has been shortened, if that makes sense. So, but anyway, Attack of the Cybermen itself is the first of these, and the twin dilemma was extremely controversial. Very few people actually liked it too much on its original airing. I haven't seen it, but anyway. So, moving into a new series, it was decided that they should do loads of continuity references and whatnot to try and get those classic fans on board. And, well, it doesn't work for me, I'm afraid. It just feels like it's too sacked down by continuity, and it's not even necessary. Like, the trip to Totter's Lane was not at all necessary in this story. It didn't need to be there whatsoever. And yeah, that's just my general view on that. And there were a couple of other things that didn't really work. It was a bit too enveloped in cyber continuity for its own good. You had kind of like the ice tombs referencing the tomb of the Cybermen, Telos and whatnot. Then you had the whole thing about them trying to prevent history with the 10th planet, making sure the events there didn't happen and whatnot. And there are a couple of other things like the Cybermen in the sewers going back to the invasion. And while this kind of works as kind of like a callback to previous Cyberman stories, it doesn't feel like it's doing them justice. It doesn't feel like it's being a tribute to them. It's more just borrowing ideas for the sake of getting fans to go, oh look, it's homaging back to these previous stories that we've loved, and it doesn't exactly work too well. It's a bit like Resurrection of the Daleks in a lot of sense. It's a bit like Resurrection of the Daleks, but for the Cybermen. And while Resurrection didn't really have that many continuity references in it, it was more in the plot aspect where it's got loads of stuff going on. So obviously in this you've also got loads of stuff going on, and ultimately there's too much going on that it doesn't feel focused enough. The story doesn't feel focused enough, that it just it's hard to grasp onto because there's too much going on and not enough payoff for that stuff going on. It all comes down to a simple face-off in the in the Cyber HQ, and it doesn't really have that kind of not grandeur, but doesn't really have that simple enjoyment that other stories such as the Invasion, 10th Planet, and Tomb of the Cybermen have. And then there's the violence. So before I talk about that quickly, let's just jump back a bit. I watched this first when I was quite young. I can't remember what the circumstances were, but I remember seeing it when I was younger and not liking it a whole lot, to be honest. And I watched it again last night before doing this review, and I must admit I was a bit more impressed on this viewing. I had seen it a couple of times in between then when I first got the DVD, and I think I watched it a lot of times since then. But this is technically my 4th or 5th viewing, and my opinion kind of changed because I watched it all in once, whereas before I had watched it as two separate episodes and whatnot, whereas this time I watched it all the way through, and that affected my opinion a bit. I enjoyed it a bit more. It's a bit easier to follow what was going on. And it's not to say I'm now a big fan of this episode, I loved it, but I must say it gave me a different viewpoint of this episode. So if you can bear sitting through both episodes together, then I would recommend you do and just see if it changes anything for you. If not, well, 1.5 hours gone of your time, that's not too much in the grand scheme of things. And yeah, so anyway, back to what I was saying, the violence in this episode. Like Earthshock, there's a bit, not Earthshock, sorry, like Resurrection of Daleks, it's a bit too much of it. And you know, but here it's used to make the Cybermen scary. That bit I will commend it for. When you've got kind of like the Cybermen crushing Litton's hands, that's very effective stuff. Because you know, usually you'd think, oh, what's a Cyberman gonna do? He's just gonna threaten his friends or anything. But no, they grab his hands and absolutely crush them. And admittedly, you know, they couldn't keep that up for long. Unfortunately, they tried to, and it's one of the reasons the show got that cancellation, which then got revised into a hiatus. But nevertheless, it ultimately badly affected the series and ended up getting it cancelled in 1989. But anyway, you know, it's just, it worked here to an extent. You know, it's good every once in a while. Too much of it, like when you get to the point of the two doctors, and it begins to get a bit, this isn't really for kids anymore, which is unfortunate. But nevertheless, here it's used well enough that it works, and it makes the Cybermen a credible menace once again, after that little hiccup in Revenge of the Cybermen. And you know, I think the new series needs something like that. The Cybermen here, while the story has its flaws, the Cybermen here are better than most of the new series ones, in my opinion. They work on much better levels. Arguably, the Cyber Leader is a bit too emotional. I'll talk about the Cyber Controller in a second. But, you know, overall, the Cybermen work here. So now, the Cyber Leader, played by David Banks, who also played the Cyber Leader in the previous two Cyberman stories, The Five Doctors and Earthshock. As you know, he returns here, and one kind of like thinks he should have really gone for the Cyber Controller, to be honest. It could have given that Cyber Controller character a much needed presence, because the actor who ends up playing him doesn't really fit the bill, I'm afraid. He just doesn't cut it for me, and I feel, and apparently David Banks didn't want to leave the Cyber Leader role because he felt that he wanted that character to be his own, I guess. And well, I kind of understand that. I think it would have been much better for him to have played the Cyber Controller. You know, it really would have been much better, you know. And the Cyber Leader doesn't have to be the same every time. And while in a way it's the same, because I mean, the same actor playing the Cyber Leader, of course, you get that continuity and whatnot. But you know, when you kind of like take this awesome Cyber Leader character played by David Banks, and then put someone on top of him who isn't as cool, you kind of like lose the effect that both characters have, which is unfortunate. But anyway, you know, overall, Attack of the Cybermen, it's a fun story in some ways, it's a bad story in others. It's ultimately up to individual opinions, but overall, I think it's good enough to maybe warrant a 6 out of 10. Maybe a 5 out of 10, I don't know, let's just go 5.5. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Next up will be the review of Doctor Who and the Silurians. I have already recorded that, it's ready to go, so it will be up almost immediately after this one. Maybe tomorrow, depending on how much time I have. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all then. Bye, everyone.